Well, I'm going to get started. So thank you everybody for joining our little training. As a lot of you probably know, because you've participated before, usually we do our training at the fall board meeting. I don't think we did it, my years are all askew. I don't think we did it last year. And it with COVID, it's been tricky. And then a lot of times with the board meeting, there's so much stuff packed into one, or not everybody's staff is able to attend. And so people that could really benefit from the training aren't able to do it. So we decided to do a webinar this year to kind of maximize the number of folks that could join us, and just, we're kicking off enrollment. Now is the best time to get oriented with what we're doing. So hopefully this works out. And I also want to keep this really casual. So feel free. I think there's a chat. Leah and Jessica and Sabrina are going to monitor that. If you want to put a question in the chat, go ahead. Or if you want to just interrupt me, that's totally fine. I will do my best. You know me, I like to talk, but I will do my best to pause and allow a chance for questions. So just to kind of cover what we're going to cover, this is really focused on, I'm not going to go into what ROII is. I feel like probably most of you have a pretty good idea. That could be an hour conversation in and of itself. So I'm happy to have that conversation with anyone who wants to, but I'm not going to do it today. I really want to focus on marketing, the materials that we're going to be giving out, leads, what are leads, how to identify good leads or not good leads, and talk about some of the reports that we are going to be sending out on a weekly basis. So that's really what we're going to cover here. Okay, let's get started. Leah. All right, so first off, materials. Oh no, go forward. There we go. Okay, so a lot of you have probably, if you got the email from Leah, she sent out a link for all the digital files. These I'm going to talk about the actual physical materials that you probably have some left over from last year, but that we'll be sending out in the next week or so, which are essentially the brochure. So this is the technical brochure. We call it a 4-page, but it's a comprehensive brochure. It gets more into the services and what we do. It's designed as a handout. This isn't designed as a mailer. You certainly could mail it if you wanted to. You could fold it and stick it in an envelope, but it's really intended to be a handout. And then we customize them for each of you. So you have the BIW logo and then your local logo as well. And then next we have the 2-panel brochure. And this one is not a comprehensive brochure. This is really designed to sort of be a hook, talk about refunds, barely cover the services, and really get people to submit the inquiry. It's designed to be a mailer. This is one that we will mail, or actually we did mail, I guess, last week to all of our active contractors. This one, for some of you that have been around for a while, this one used to have a tear out inquiry card, but we're like cool and fancy and in the new age now, so we don't do that. We just send them all to ROII.com to do the inquiry online. This one also is customized for each of the locals. So you have the BIW logo and then your own logo as well. And then the rack cards, which were new last year, these are really easy to display, easy to have out on a table. We take them if we go to an event, and they fit in an envelope, so they're much easier to mail. And then these are customizable specifically for other retro comparison. So you all kind of have the option to display other retro information, specifically refunds. So there's a couple of examples up there. So it could be ROII and one other retro, in this case, AGC. Maybe you want a couple, or there's also just sort of the average where it's ROII compared to an average of all other construction retro. So these have been pretty handy, and I think a lot of you get these, also customizable with your logos. Again, everything is available digitally. These are really just the physical materials. I'm not covering all of the, digital ads, the Facebook, social posts that you all have access to. And Leah, I believe, the link that she provided had all of that. And obviously, if there's something that you want to customize, or something you saw or you didn't see here, Leah can help get you whatever you need. Okay, so those are the materials. Now I want to kind of dive into the different, actually first, no, I'm going to pause. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Okay.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
You said that it's on a link that
Yes.
Leah sent. Leah, will you make sure I'm on your mailing list? Because I'm now taking over some of the ROII stuff. So
Ooh,
I need all that.
Yeah, we will add you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the marketing categories, this is kind of my way to sort of keep it somewhat simple. I guess you can be the judge of whether or not I'm successful at that. But we're going to start. There's really two categories when it comes to companies. So we're going to start with category 1. And these are companies that we don't have an active release on file, which means we can't view their premium and loss history. We really don't know a whole lot about them. So we can't do a preliminary or preliminary review. So we need an active release for category 1 companies. And why do we need a release? Well, the release is what gives us access to their account information with L&I. And in order for us to invite someone to apply, we need that access. We need to see their premium. We need to see their history of claims. We need to look at their risk classes. We want to look at really everything that we have access to with L&I. And the point is, the application process is fairly extensive. We don't want companies to go through to fill out an entire application only to find out that, oh, they don't have even enough reporting history for us to look at, or, whatever. And it's not to say that, and I'm going to say this over and over throughout this presentation, it's not to say that when a company does a release and we do the preliminary review, it's not, and we invite them to apply, it's not a guarantee, but what we're trying to do is basically limit the chance that we're going to say no. The preliminary review, in order to do that, we have to have the company has to have an active L&I account. And basically, if you have an L&I account, you report employees. If you don't have an L&I account, you don't have employees, and you would not be a good fit for ROII. We also want a minimum of 3 to 10 years of reporting history. And that's basically reporting employees with L&I. So this is kind of to give you an idea of what, when we're talking about reporting history, because this is really the most common reason that a company would inquire and we would say no. It's because they don't have enough reporting history. So without getting into an in-depth review of underwriting, which I'm not going to do here, this is really just sort of a basic sort of understanding of how many years we're looking for, depending on their size. So a small company, which is less than 10,000 in annual standard premium, we want to see between 7 and 10 years of reporting history. For a medium-sized company, which is between 10 and just under 35,000, we want to see between 3 and 5 years of reporting history. And for a large company, 35,000 or more, we want to see between 1 and 3 years. And the range really kind of has to do with claims. So for example, if say a medium-sized company sent in an inquiry and they had maybe 3 years of history, but no claims, and maybe their premium was on the increase, we may make an exception and not require all 5 years. If say they had claims in, you know, 4 years or 3 years, we probably would want to see 5. So I suspect there's going to be questions here. Anyone?
I have a question, Jim.
Yep. Okay. Hey, Corey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great.
Good. So when I'm selling ROII, it's common for an owner not to know how much they're paying on their annual premiums.
Yep.
To L&I. So what does this translate into something we can sell on the spot? Like how many employees on average would this translate into?
That's a really great question. And I'm going to get there further into the presentation, but just so you know, kind of where we sort of, 5 employees. So when we get our list of active contractors, which I'm going to cover in the next couple slides, part of the cleanup that we do is anyone that has less than 5 employees, we take off that list. It does not mean that someone with less than 5 employees wouldn't be somebody that we would invite to apply or that could benefit from ROII. It just means that we're focusing more of our marketing on companies with more than that. And it also, because it's so tricky, because it depends on the number of employees they have, but also what they're doing, what type of work they're doing. You know, if they're a roofer, 5 employees means they're going to have much more premium than if they were an electrician with 5 employees. So it's really hard to, there's no like definitive with this stuff. It's sort of like you're speaking in generalities and you're just trying to kind of figure out who maybe you want to push a little more than another company.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Okay, so the category 1, again, these are companies that we don't have an active release for. So our goal is to get them to do the release, to get them to go to ROII.com and just fill out the release. So this is really the focus of our marketing efforts with these companies. It's a very broad. We're not getting into the details of retro and all of our programs. It's really, honestly, we're trying to hook up. We're probably going to talk about 37% average refund, you know, do the release. Because as a lot of you know, as you kind of go through our process, we start out really, really broad. We try to just capture them. And then as they move through our enrollment process, we get more specific on what we do, what they need to do, and how to be successful in retro. So emails, we're doing mailers, and a lot of word of mouth. So, you know, we're at golf tournaments. A lot of companies, we don't really know a whole lot about them. We're you know, asking them some basic questions to try to get them to do the inquiry. So the biggest list of category 1 companies come from our contractor file. This is a list that we request every year. We do a public records request because through a public records request, we can get all of the data points that we need to try to be really targeted with our marketing efforts. So cleanup is key with the contractor file, because when there's like 50,000 contractors in Washington. And when we do all of our cleanup, we get down to a list of about 6,000. So we're weeding out a lot of companies. So some of the things that we look at, like I mentioned with Corey, is the number of full-time employees. So anything less than 5, we remove from the list. We're also looking at the active date of their L&I account. And I think it was Heather at Tri-Cities asked about that. And it was a really, really good question. What does this active date mean? That is when their L&I account was activated with L&I. Now that's a difficult one, because obviously if they have more employees, we are looking at less years of history. So we kind of, with our cleanup and that, we combined the start date with the number of employees they had. So I think it was like 10. If they had over 10, we left them in, even if their account was only like a year or so old. Because knowing, maybe they won't qualify yet. But if they're interested and we get them in our system, it's easier for us to keep track of them, get new history every year, and really just sort of get them in our system so we can follow them. Risk classes is another thing we look at. For ROII, we are a construction retro program. So the companies that we enroll have to be construction or related to construction in some way. So there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of restaurants will have contractor's license. And obviously we don't want restaurants. So we have to look at that and weed that out of the file. And then the other thing we look at is, are they already enrolled in ROII, or do we already have them in our prospects and we're already actively marketing to them? So we take them out too, because we want 2 very separate lists. We want our category 1 L&I or contractors with no release, and then our category 2, which I'll cover soon. And then, so you all received your cleaned up list. And that list, so as we market throughout the year, I say that list is dynamic. And basically what I mean is that list is going to change. So as we market to those companies and maybe they inquire and send in an inquiry and go into prospects, they're going to be removed from that contractor file. So that list is going to basically change throughout the 4 months that we do enrollment. So if you ever want an updated list, just let us know. It's super easy to run, super quick. So here's an up close look at your file. So obviously it's got your local, we have their L&I account number because they have an active contractor's license. So we get their L&I account number, their address. If they have an email, a lot of them, don't, but you'll see that there. If they're in another retro program, you'll see that under retro name. And then the active date, like I said, that's the active date of their L&I account. So basically when they started reporting employees, and then their FTE, full-time employees. And generally speaking, the more FTEs they have, the more premium that they're likely to have. Is there any questions on the contractor file or the cleanup that we do for the contractor file? Anybody? Okay. Okay, so here's kind of what I was sort of getting to with Corey, a few pre-screening questions that can help you target companies for an inquiry. So it's basically what we're doing to the contractor file, but this is like you're talking with somebody, you're in an event, or whatever, you don't know how much premium they pay, you don't know, they don't maybe know. So here's a few pre-screening questions that can help you target which companies you want to be like, hey, you need to go to ROI.com and you need to fill out the inquiry and get started. So first of all, what type of work do you do? Are they doing construction? Are they doing remodeling? Are they roofers? Are they HVAC companies? If they say they are in insurance, well, then you know that they're not going to be a good fit for ROI. Do you have employees? Sometimes folks don't have employees. Maybe they've just gotten started. Maybe they don't want to bother with employees. Maybe they sub out everything. So do you have employees? And if they say yes, well, how many do you have? If they said they had one or two, I probably would not push them right away. If they say, oh, well, we have one or two now and we're looking to add more down the road, then it's like, well, ROI may be something that you want to really look at. You maybe are it's maybe a little too soon right now, but it kind of directs how you where you send them and how I don't want to say aggressive, I don't like that word, but how much you push them to inquire now, or maybe you just sort of plant a seed. Also, how long have you had employees? And this is really, so I put this in here to differentiate between, you don't want to ask necessarily how long have you been in business, because somebody could have been in business for 15 years, but it's only in the last 2 years that they have employees. We've seen that a lot. So don't ask how long they've been in business, ask how long have you had employees. Again, if they say, oh, well, I just hired my first employee, 5 months ago, well, that tells you they're not going to qualify yet. So maybe you're planting a seed, but you're not really pushing them to go to ROI.com right now. Those are the biggest questions. The other ones that are important, but not as important, I don't think, at least for getting somebody to go to ROI.com. Are you familiar with kept on salary and light duty? More and more now, more people are familiar with kept on salary and light duty. I'd probably say they're more familiar with light duty. But 5 years ago, people would be like, what are you talking about? I don't know what that is. Now it's much more common. Do you have a current safety plan or a current accident prevention plan? Again, those are kind of supplemental questions. We will figure those things out. And if they don't, it's not a deal breaker. I would focus more on what type of work do you do? Do you have employees? How many? Those are really the biggest kind of pre-screening questions. And then, so here's our first link or our first resource, L&I's website. It's their contractor verification website, is a really excellent resource. When you maybe you've talked with a company and they're like, oh, I don't know. And you want to do a little research, or maybe you have some leads that somebody else has passed along, or maybe you're just wanting to do research on people before you talk to them. This is a really great link here. I know a lot of you use this. So I'm going to kind of show you, Leah, you can put this link in I can't see the chat box, but Leah can send this link put it in the chat. Okay, next slide, please. Any questions before I dive into the contractor verification site with L&I? Okay, so we use this all the time, all the time. I have it as I have it as a link on my internet. I probably go here more than I go anywhere else. I use this constantly. And you can search a company. So when you guys are calling me and you're like, hey, have you heard of so-and-so? Can you look up so-and-so? I'm punching them up and I'm looking at prospects. If they're not in our prospects, this is where I'm looking them up. And you can search by company name, by L&I account number. If you have their L&I account number, that's like ideal, because a lot of people have similar names and sometimes it can be hard to pinpoint the right one, but it's doable. So L&I account number, company name, UBI, if you have their contractor registration number, that works too. You just choose how you want to search, you punch it in, and then you go to this. So this gives you basically everything about this company. And when we request the contractor file through the public records request, essentially this is where that data is coming from. So you can see their contractor information, whether or not it's active, whether it's expired or going to be expired soon. And then when you look at the page, you're basically just scrolling down. Next, you go over to the right, the workers' comp information. So there's their L&I account number, their estimated workers reported. Now, this is an estimation based on their quarterly reporting. So L&I is basically calculating, a number of FTE based on what they have reported in their quarterly premium. Their account is current. And then there's a little link that shows you their workers' comp rates, which that shows you the risk classifications that they're reporting on. So this tells you whether they're active, whether they have an L&I account number, how many employees they may have, whether they're construction related. And it also shows you their experience factor, but you've probably, a lot of you have heard me say this, we don't care about their experience mod. A lot of companies will, my experience mod is, we don't care. Your experience mod, I mean, it's great. If it's low, that's great. A company is paying, less upfront, but really the experience mod, it's based off old data. So it's really not going to show us what a company is doing right now in terms of their premium and their claims. So really what that tells you is the company is paying upfront in their premium, they're paying less than the base rate if it's under 1, or if it's over 1, they're paying more than the base rate. Just FYI. Okay, before I go into the category 2 companies, trying to pause. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to take a drink of coffee. Anyone?
Jen?
Yeah.
I'll just say that, and for Corey, this is kind of to answer your question a little bit. One of the things that I always say, they'll say, how long have you been in business? I use the 5 and 5 typically, like if we're at a golf tournament or I'm talking to somebody at a dinner. And they'll say, oh, a couple years, maybe I've had employees a couple years. I'm like, well, why don't we do this? If you fill out the inquiry and send it in, you'll at least get on our radar. We can find out more information about your company. And I try and set people up that I don't think are going to qualify. Look, we have really strict underwriting, so don't be surprised if you don't qualify yet. but that gets you in our marketing system, in our list of people that are interested in the program, and we'll watch it for you. We'll let you know when you qualify, when we want you to invite you into the program. So sometimes, even if you think, oh, I'm not sure if they qualify or not, it doesn't hurt if they're sitting on the edge to get them to do the inquiry, but let them know up front, you might not qualify yet, but that gets you into our system.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. That's a really good point. I say that a lot, yet. You might not qualify yet. And I just, with anything that we do, we try to be as upfront as possible, and letting them know that, hey, we're running a retro program. We're trying to help our participants earn maximum returns and the best refunds for the group. And that means that we have to be diligent about, who we invite in. So these are the things we look at. But just because you don't qualify now doesn't mean you won't qualify down the road. When we send somebody a letter that says no, obviously we can't customize every letter specifically for every single company. It's just not feasible. So our letters are kind of generic. But if I've been working with a company, or if you're working with a company and you want them to inquire and you want to be sort of involved in that process, let us know. Give us a heads up. And most all of you do that. Like, I'll get a call from a membership person. Hey, I got so-and-so to submit the inquiry. Can you let me know when you've done your review, so that it's a little more, we can make it a little more personal, whether you want to know first, and let them know, hey, you didn't qualify because of this, but they're going to take a look next year, maybe, whatever. We can absolutely do that. You just have to let us know. I will do that with companies that I've specifically talked to. If we go through the inquiry, and maybe there's a question I have, or maybe, something's askew, it's easier to have that personal conversation, which we want to do. It's just, we can't always do that every single time because we may not know. I mean, we're getting inquiries coming in, quite a lot. So anyway, just give us a heads up, call us, email. It's easy peasy. Okay, so the second category I will call category 2 companies. And these are folks who have already submitted an inquiry, or they were enrolled before, and we have access to their L&I account, and we can do our preliminary review and basically determine whether we want to invite them to apply or not. So these companies are the ones that you're gonna be, as any local staff, EOs, membership people, or anybody else that you tell us to loop in on this communication. You're gonna see these emails, and these folks will be on your reports that you get weekly. So how do we determine whether or not we send a company an application? And so obviously what we're trying to do is determine whether a company qualifies, but I don't like to say that because, like I said before, it's possible that we could send them an application and they may not ultimately get enrolled. So I like to say we do our preliminary review and we invite them to apply. We invite them to submit an application. So these are the things that we look at. Obviously, whether they have a positive reporting history. So if they had been enrolled with us, would they have contributed positively to the group performance? And we're not just looking at 1 or 2 years, we're looking at several. We're looking at over the aggregate, and we want to make sure that, if a company has a lot of claims or has a high frequency of claims, we want to make sure that we can help them. We want to be able, we want to make sure that we can, you know, if we invite them to apply, that we can help them if they need help, or provide services if they need services. Are there red flags in their history? So we might be looking at frequency of injuries by certain individuals. If maybe we see somebody who's got, you know, 20 claims, or, you know, that's generally, or maybe there's a frequency of a certain type of injury. So again, we want to have the best picture of a company so that we know whether or not we can take in that risk and help them. Is their L&I account in good standing? Do they owe L&I a lot of money? Do they have an account balance, or do they have a history of collections? Sometimes that can be concerning. You know, sometimes it depends on the type of work that people do. If they're involved in you know, something where they're like, if we're insurance, you know, sometimes there can be a where you're not getting paid, and so it can delay when you pay your taxes, whatever. But we also want to make sure, you know, like, for example, if you had to do kept on salary, or is that, you know, something that you would be able to do, because you're essentially, you know, paying wages up front. Are there employees engaged in construction related activities? So I've talked about this. Are they doing, are they in construction or something related to construction? So again, these are category 2. We've done our preliminary review, and we're targeting them to fill out the application. So we're sending them emails with an invitation letter, an application, a brochure. We want them to fill out the application. So that is all of the correspondence that we're sending. That's what we're trying to do. These folks are in your reports. I'll cover that in, I think, the next slide. So these are ones where, you know, local follow-up, identify companies. If you've got folks that are already members and we're sending them the application, that's your low-hanging fruit. Follow up with them first. They're already members with you. You likely already have a relationship with them. So follow up to get that application in. Member to member follow up, same idea. If there's somebody that we've already looked at and we're sending them an app, those are kind of the low hanging fruit. And then we also will follow up with those people as well with phone calls or other methods. So this is just sort of a snapshot of what we send them, which a lot of you see regularly, or you will very, very soon. Your inboxes are going to start blowing up. So we send them the invitation letter, which basically just tells them that we want to invite them to apply. We do say in this letter that enrollment is not guaranteed. We talk about the enrollment requirements, the fee, and then we send them a refund report. So this is a projection of what they could have received in refunds for the last 3 completed plan years. So this is really important, and it's something very unique to ROII. Because we will not project refunds for plan years that are still in play. And we won't, because you don't know, as a group, you don't know what your refund is until the final adjustment. And if you as a group don't know what your refund is till the final adjustment, your employees or your participants don't know what their refund is till the final adjustment. If a company has a claim that's open at first adjustment, second adjustment, that's going to ultimately impact their total refund for that plan year. So you might ask or think like, well, why are you going back to the 17 plan year? That's so long ago. Well, that's the last completed plan year, and that's why. And these refund projections are based on actual refunds that were distributed to participants. And they're accurate within like a crazy amount of money. Like we tested this with a company that had been enrolled before, so we knew what they had gotten in refunds, so we could compare it to their projection, and we were off by like $50. So right now, the 17 plan year is the most current. Once we have our next adjustment in April, we will adjust this, so the 18 plan year will be the most recent. And then you can't see it at the bottom, but there's a, we just basically do a chart of ROII's premium and refunds. Now, if you were working with a company that was enrolled in another retro program, like ABC or SMART or AGC, if they inquired with us, they would get the refund projection at the top, but then they would also see a comparison of ROII's refunds compared to their current group. So that's what they would see at the bottom. And it's, we try to do as many other retro companies as we can. So we've got all of the construction competitors, and then we have some other ones as well that have some crossover. We have some crossover with some manufacturing companies. So there's some manufacturing risk classes that could qualify in construction. So if we see in our prospects that we're marketing to those types of companies, we'll get those refunds as well, so that we can provide them with a comparison too. Okay,
so
so
quick question.
Yes, thank you.
So if somebody applies, or I guess like just submits that they're interested in applying, but they are already on like the ABC, let's, for example, ROII program, do you guys just know, like, does that pop up when you start searching and like looking into them, or is that something that you have to like reach out and ask them specifically if they're already part of a program?
Very good question. So we have some sneaky ways we can find out whether or not they're in another retro program if we don't have that release.
Okay.
So like for the contractor file that I talked about, we ask specifically for other retro information so that we can look.
Okay.
If for whatever reason we can't find them on the contractor registration list or whatever, we would need the release. So if they do the inquiry, then we have that information, because that's part of what we can look at on LNI's with LNI. So the LNI access, that will tell us.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
And we have history of, it goes back really for years and years. So if we get access to their account, we can go into LNI system and see, maybe they aren't with a program right now, but maybe they were 3 years ago, and they had been with ABC for 10 years, or whatever. We can see all that. Very good question. Anyone else?
For Kelsey, I just wanted to add that if they're in another program, we can only market to them in this open enrollment phase right now. So it's important to contact them earlier in the year. If you've got a lot that you're working on, kind of focus on those, because those are ones we can't get in later in the year. We can't take them in any of the other quarterly enrollments, just this little period of time until May.
Yep. Very good point, Jan. So yeah, this time right now is, if we're going to get people to switch, this is our window of opportunity. And basically those people, we have to submit them on June 15th. And honestly, I don't know. I like to start planting the seeds with other retro companies now, but I feel like they don't generally get really serious until May. Okay, so this little snapshot right here is your prospects by local report. So EOs, membership people, anybody that we're sending correspondence to, this is one of the Excel reports that you get on a weekly basis. You get this, and then you get your apps by local. So the apps are basically just that, anybody who's applied or current participants. So for this training, I'm going to focus on your prospects. So I'm just going to kind of go through each column and describe what each column means. The status is sort of how we determine where they came from. So the year is the number. So 21 is 2021. You'll see soon 2022. And then the I, if it's an I, that means they inquired. So that means that they went through the inquiry process and sent in the release. And R means that they were rejected from our program in that year. So the 14R, we rejected them in 2014. And that doesn't tell you why. Probably this company left our program to go to Southwest Washington Contractors Association. Most of the companies that you see, they're going to be either an inquiry, an I, or probably an R. The other retro column, self-explanatory, that's if they're in another retro program, that's the one they're in. If they're a good lead, so obviously yes means yes, they're a good lead. It means that we have done our preliminary review and we are inviting them to apply. So we are targeting them with an application. If it says no and it has a reason, then we've looked at them and we've determined that no, they're not a good lead for this year. And the reason is basically why. Now, some of them may say no and have no reason listed. And that means that they weren't a good lead last year, but we haven't looked at them this year. So we need to look at them again and determine, are they still not a good lead, or maybe they are. And as we sort of go through the next weeks and months, we are going to be doing our very best to look at every single company that is in prospects that we have access to determine whether they are a good lead or whether they're not. So we've done a big review initially. So when you get your reports this week, you'll see a lot of folks that are going to be yes, but you'll also see a lot that are going to be no and not have a reason, because we need to look at those. So the app mailed date, that's the last, and that's not really, it's an app wasn't mailed, an app was emailed, but that's the last date that they were emailed an application. The inquiry date is the last date that we received a release. The inquiry letter date, again, that's the last time that we sent them correspondence to apply. Obviously the premium. And then the other two fields are, again, just whether they're okay. And then the CAC access is whether we have an active release on file. So if you see, for example, if you see a company on that file and you recognize their name and you know that maybe they had mentioned they were interested, but you see, no, we don't have CAC access, get those companies to submit the inquiry. And then we can get them, we can do our review, and maybe we can start targeting them with an application. Any questions about this report? Okay, and again, like I said, you're going to start seeing this. We're going to send out, we're kind of going to do a modified weekly report since we've started enrollment early. So we're not going to send out all the memo and the Excel file because we're not, we haven't started re-enrollment yet, but you're going to get this report. You're going to see a list of, who's inquired, and you're going to see your prospects, so that now's the time to, I think, get folks to submit the application. People are busy. They're busy all the time. But right now, I feel like they're less busy than they will be in April or May. So if they're interested, we've already actually gotten a lot of calls about folks that they're ready to inquire and submit the application. So this is a really good window of time, and it's why our goal this year was to start right away, to start in January, was to kind of hopefully capitalize on that little window of extra time. Okay, so like I said, I've been saying, and I say all the time, and you've heard me say probably 5 or 6 times in this presentation, enrollment is not guaranteed with these prospects. So while we've invited them, we've done a preliminary review, that's really what it is. It's a preliminary review. We are very thoughtful when we review companies, because we don't want them to submit the application and then be turned away. So we try very, very hard, but things can change. If we look at a company now in January and they apply in May, things can change from now to then. Most of the time when we invite a company and they apply, they are approved, but it's not guaranteed. And that's just important to remember. So I think the next portion is just to kind of reiterate, what does it take to be approved? And I will say, I say it at the end of this, but I'm going to say it at the beginning too. You'll notice as I go through these things, most all of them, but really the first 2 are up to the company. So most of the enrollment requirements are really up to them, with the exception of the underwriting evaluation. So again, we've done our preliminary review. Once they submit the application, there's a lot of other information within the application that allows us to be more in depth. And so that's the first requirement, to be primarily construction or provide related services. Again, this is something that we look at as when they are a prospect, when they do the when we do the preliminary review. And this is, we would know before we submit or before we invite somebody to apply whether or not they're construction related. It may be a conversation. Sometimes a company doesn't have a risk class that's considered construction. So when L&I does their review, because L&I is the final say of all of our enrollment, and not just ours, but every retro program. Everybody gets submitted to L&I for final approval. And that is what L&I will look for, whether or not they have construction related risk classes. So sometimes L&I says, hey, they don't have a construction risk class, so we can't approve them. But then we say, well, actually, their employees are doing things that are construction related, and here's what they're doing, and here's how it's like other construction related activities. And a lot of times L&I will make an exception, but we want to make sure that we can make that case before we invite someone to apply. So there's a few examples of construction: drywall, roofing, HVAC, the obvious construction activities, and then related services. So ready mix concrete, that's a related service, or electrical wiring, it's a related service. If you're not sure about these things, you can always call us and ask, but this is something that we look at when we're doing our initial review. Have a current written safety plan. So this is not just an ROII requirement, but it's required by L&I. So it's every company has to have a written safety plan or an accident prevention plan. We ask this question on the inquiry, but sometimes the people that fill out the inquiry don't know. So we will get to this in the application. We're very specific. If they have one, and if they do, we ask them to provide a the table of contents. So we have to verify that. And sometimes companies will apply and they don't have one. And if they apply early enough, they can get one in place and still be able to enroll. And that happens quite frequently. We can give them some resources with L&I. L&I has templates of accident prevention plan. So basically a company just needs to download the template and then customize it. So again, not having one is not a deal breaker, but they would need to get one in place before we could approve them. So agree to kept on salary and light duty. Obviously, these are program requirements, so it's really important that companies understand what they are and agree to follow them. And really, most companies are going to get the biggest explanation when they go through the class, and it's why the class is so important and why it's so important that an owner attend the class, because these are not just contractual obligations, but they're financial. So a company is agreeing to, if they have someone who gets hurt and they're so hurt that their doctor says they can't work at all, that company is agreeing to pay their full salary, their full wages for up to 30 days. And that's, for some companies that can be tricky, and it can be a deal breaker. And I have seen, not very often, but it has happened where a company goes through the whole process, they do the application, they take the class, and after taking the class, they're like, whoa, nope, I can't do that. Maybe it's, my wages are really high. I'm not okay with that. And that is why we have the class and why we go over it in depth, because people need to understand what it is and be willing to, do that if they should have a claim. And sometimes with kept on salary, I would say most of the time with kept on salary, when a company has to do it, maybe they pay a couple days, maybe it's a week. It's generally not the full 30 days. That's a pretty serious injury, but it's a possibility. And then with modified duty, I think it really helps to have the additional explanation that comes in the class, because a lot of companies will say, oh, well, I don't have modified duty. Well, you do. It's essentially making up a job to work within restrictions that a doctor might give an injured worker. But they need to have that explanation, have examples of the kinds of things that they could do, and know that, if you have somebody who might have to work in the office, are you going to be okay with that? So, and then again, I already mentioned, so the owner must attend the class. Just so that you guys know, this year we are, and if you've gone through the website or looked at the application, so we are bringing back in-person classes this year. The online classes, we kind of didn't really have a choice. We needed to do them. We've done some surveying of people, and I think that the in-person classes, I think they're more effective in teaching the materials that we have to cover. But I want to reassure you all that We will use the online class as an option for people that absolutely can't make any of the in-person classes. We have online classes scheduled, but we're not marketing them and we're not putting them on the schedule. But if somebody calls us and they're like, hey, there's just no way that I can make this happen, then we will have the online class as another option. So just know that. And we're doing, hopefully, we scheduled some classes in April. So thinking that, okay, if we can capitalize on this time now and get people to submit apps, we can get them out of the way in April, but then we'll still have our classes in May and June. And then obviously everybody needs to be a current member of BIW through their wonderful local association. And companies don't, I mean, they can go through the process, go through the application process first, and then set up their membership. It's really, you know, that's kind of up to you and them how that works. Obviously, we make sure before final approval that they're members, and you know, I think we're really good about staying in communication. And but again, a company can go through the whole process first, make sure that they get approved before they set up membership. So just to reiterate on that last slide, really everything is ultimately up to the company. You know, the underwriting evaluation is something that we do, but everything else, you know, the KOS, the light duty, attending the class, the safety, it's really ultimately up to them. So their enrollment, for the most part, is really in their own hands. Okay, and just to kind of recap from before, when you're determining, you know, who to really push to ROII.com or who to really do your hard sell of the program, just remember a few important questions. And I think Jan, you know, she said it really well before. You know, it doesn't always mean that they may not qualify now, right now, but it's a yet. So just because maybe they don't answer all of these questions the right way, it doesn't mean that it's not, you know, forever. So again, what kind of work do you do? Needs to be construction or construction related. How many employees do you have? There's no definitive number, but if they have, well, except 0, if they have no employees, then retro is not an option for them. But probably 5 that's ideal. And how long have you had employees? And then the current written safety plan and the kept on salary and light duty, which again are kind of supplemental questions. If they're like really gung ho and they tick off all these boxes, it doesn't hurt to talk about those things. Like I said before, most people are pretty familiar with kept on salary and light duty. And then of course, when in doubt, you have LNI's handy website that you can go and look at. And of course, aside from all of this, you have ROII staff, whether it's me, Leah, Jessica, Sabrina. We are here to help you. If you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can't remember all that, just call us. You know, like I said, you're on the phone with us and we're checking all of these things. We can probably give you all the information you need, you know, within 5 minutes. Whether, hey, you need them to just submit the inquiry, I really don't. I don't know a whole lot about them, but it's worth it for them to do that. Or, oh my gosh, yeah, these people just need to apply. Get them to send in the application. So we're always here. You can call us, you can email us anytime, and we can certainly do the legwork for you. So what's new in 2022? Yep.
Sorry, before we get to the website, I just wanted to say, I've had a company say, well, I've had a couple of accidents. Chris is great at looking at those types of accidents, who had the accidents. We've got a great field staff. I always just say, well, let our underwriter take a look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can actually help you with those accidents so that you don't have some of the same types of things happening again. So don't ever let that discourage you from encouraging them. Perhaps we can really help them along those lines. And Chris is great at looking at that and saying, wow, they're having problems with ladders over the last 3 years. We can deal with that.
Yep, exactly. That's a really good point, Jan. And especially if you are, working with somebody, a specific company, that's when it's really important, I think, to call us and kind of give us a heads up so that we know, hey, if we're looking at this company, you're talking with them, or maybe you have a relationship with them, and it's allows us to dig a little bit deeper, because we can maybe ask them some specific questions that we wouldn't if we just got like a random release and we don't know anything about the company. And the ladder example is a really good one. So for example, if we see a lot of ladder falls, I can guarantee you that if they apply, we're going to make sure that they have ladder training specifically in their accident prevention program. So again, we're not trying to, when we're looking at companies, we're not really looking at them to say no. I know we say that, but we want to make sure that we know how we can help them. If we're looking for trends, we got to make sure that we can, anyone that we invite into the program, that we can help be successful. So before I dive into the website, actually Leah's going to dive into the website. Are there any questions about anything, contractor file, prospects, the reports? Maybe you thought I was going to talk about something and I didn't, and you're like, hey Jen, what about anything?
I can just add one more thing that I look at when I'm sorting to do the marketing. Jen said low-hanging fruit is someone who's already a member, but they're not in a program. So obviously we want to market to them. I take the non-members and go into WMS and look and see if they were a member and they dropped their membership, maybe 2019 or 2020, or maybe it was even further back. That gives me an opening line when I'm talking to them. I saw you were a member until 2010. Did something happen? Is there some reason that you dropped your membership? It's a way to start a conversation, because one of the things we will have to talk to them about eventually, if we're marketing an ROII, is their membership.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not they're a current member or not, you can use that as a good opening line to someone who's never been in WMS, they've never been in the system, they've never been a member. Then you have to talk about both membership in your local association and membership in ROII. So it just gives you another way to market to a group that aren't current members, but were members in the past.
It's a good point. Yep. Kind of using the data to help you figure out where you're going to start, maybe where you're going to start your conversation, or what methods you feel may be the best to use with a particular company, for sure. And actually, that's a really good segue. Are there any other folks, membership people or EOs that have been around for a long time, that have done this a lot, that have any tips they might want to share? I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. Anyone? All right. Okay. So the biggest thing that is new for 2022 is the website. And I really hope, I'm not sure if you guys can be as excited as Lee and I are about the website. Like, if you could have seen us over the last 2 weeks, we've just been, the whole office, the whole BIW office has heard us shrieking and yelling, and we're so excited about the website. So I'm going to turn things over to Leah. She's just going to kind of go through each page and kind of highlight specific things, but I encourage all of you, if you haven't already, to go to ROII.com, poke around, you know, get familiar with the website. I think it's going to be a really awesome tool. And I mean, you know, we talk about, we're gonna toot horns and all that right now. You know, we talk about how the things that we do and how, you know, we're better than our competition, and we do things, you know, just differently, and we're smart and talented, and we have amazing people. And I just feel like we now like have something to really show that. I mean, this is slick. It's really slick. So, okay, Leah, go ahead.
I'm gonna be quick so we can get out of here, but this is kind of a game changer for us because Grip doesn't have this. I mean, they have like one single page, but they don't have a full-on website.
No other group has anything like this.
No. So front and center is the get started, the inquiry form, which is fantastic. So they can start filling it out. It'll shoot them off to the full form where they'll complete it. But if anyone's confused, it's right there, front and center. Another fun little tool that we did this year was actually calculate your ROII refund. So they can pop in their information, or you can, if you want to, you can calculate and see, you know, how much they could have saved with ROII if they're enrolled. So that's a big deal. I think a lot of people are really gonna like this guy. And then we have some like testimonial videos and things like that towards the end, but we have an about page, pretty self-explanatory. It's about us, who we are, what we do, all that fun stuff. We got Jen front and center, her pictures and videos there. So we have like, what is ROII? That's a fun one. If you guys want to use that for any of your materials, or if you have webinars or whatever, please ask me. I'm happy to go ahead and give that to you. And then we have get started. So this is our July kickoff enrollment video that we just posted on Instagram and Facebook. So go and like, which we also have our own like ROII Facebook and Instagram. So be sure to follow us there. But we'll also always be on BIW too as well. Services, pretty self-explanatory. Here's our wonderful services. We go through all of them, and then we talk about our field staff, which is a big part of the services that we offer to participants. Is Jan on there? No, she's not in there. She's marketing. FAQ is a big one. This one actually might be helpful for you guys too. It's like our top questions. So what do people want to know? So, you know, Jen said, I don't want to get into like what ROII is, retro, all that today. You can actually go to our FAQ if you don't know what it is and get a general idea of what it is. And then we always link to L&I just in case you want to get really in depth. And everything is pretty much here. Services, participation. So we have more on kept on salary and light duty. So that's awesome. And then if you don't see a question, maybe you guys have like people who ask you the same question every single time and you just need an answer for it. By all means, tell us. We can go ahead and add it to the FAQ too, if that would be helpful. Classes. So this is a new feature for 2021. We're actually partnering with BIW Education to offer free classes. They're usually safety related. And they get them for free. So if they're an ROI participant and they need to take a fall protection class, that's a big one we have right now that keeps filling up very quickly. They can go ahead and do that. We have a contractor liability class that's coming up. And then we also have, hopefully, potentially, maybe HR classes, which were highly requested. So keep an eye out for that. This goes straight to the BIW website, and then they can register through the BIW website. And then we have,
okay, Leah, I'm gonna
go for it.
butt in for a second, because Chelsea asked if we have examples or templates of the safety plans. So we and actually that's a really great question, perhaps in the FAQ, because we don't, it's L&I does. So, and we always send companies to L&I's website to view and download their templates, or to set up a consultation, and L&I can help folks go through that. But absolutely, we can add a link to do that, because I think on the FAQ we talk about the safety plan, so it would be super easy to just link to L&I's website for that. It's a really good question.
All right, and then we have the application right now. It just goes to a downloadable PDF that they can print and then fill out, or they can fill it out on their computer. But eventually, hopefully soon, we're actually going to have an application that they can fill out online, which will be really, really nice and slick. So they can actually go through the process, go through each step, because it is quite lengthy. But then it's submitted and it goes straight to us and it's done. Like they don't have to do anything else, which is great. We're pretty excited about that. And then I'm sure you guys know what a contact us form is, but we've got our little ROII doggo up there, and then you can go ahead and fill anything out here. We have these handy dandy links if you guys want to follow us on social, or if you want to send someone our way on social, that's great too. But yeah, we have a membership portal or a participant portal that we're actually going to be unveiling hopefully soon. And that'll have its own FAQ page too as well. So if you have participants who ask a lot of different questions, they'll have stuff there. But the possibilities are pretty much endless with the participant portal, but there they can see who their claim rep is. They can see who their field rep is. They can see their address. They can update their address. They can see everything there. So that'll be really nice. And then we also have classes that we'll offer there just for participants, like our refresher course and things like that. So it's going to be a really cool way for them to download, our little accident envelope things, or they can report an accident online. So it's going to be a really slick way for them to stay in touch with us and keep communication with us. So we're excited about that. And that'll happen this year too. So we'll keep you guys posted. But that's a general overview of the website. Does anyone have any questions about the website or anything? I'm guessing no, but I just thought I'd ask. Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Anything? No? Okay. So cheers to 2022. I cannot believe that we are already beginning another year of enrollment. It blows my mind. It's super exciting, but I just can't believe that it's already that time of year. So we say this all the time. We want to be good partners. We want good partners, and it goes without saying. It's not just for our participants. It's for you all as well. We want to be good partners to you. So if there's something that we can do to help, if you ever want to just call and just talk through stuff, we're here. We want you to be successful, because when you're successful, we're successful. So, but we just need to know what it is that we can do. Never hesitate to call. I say it over and over. The more we hear from you, the more successful you will be. It's just a fact. The locals that we hear from more generally have more applicants, have more inquiries. I just always see that. And probably because your level of commitment will be your level of return. So we say that to our participants all the time too. Your commitment is your level of return, and however we can help you do that, we want to. So yeah, that's all I have. Other than just be prepared, because we're starting. So you all you EOs, membership people, today we're sending out emails today. We're kicking off. I think there's like, Jessica, you can chime in if you want. I think there's like 225 prospects that have already been looked at that we're going to be inviting to apply, and they're all going to get emailed today. So you're going to get CC'd on a lot of stuff, and then pretty much, we're sending out regular emails. If you saw the email from me last week or the week before, re-enrollment will kick off in February. So really right now we're focused on inquiries, and hopefully, folks will eke out some time to fill in that app, because if they do it now, they're saving themselves in the long run, really. So I will stop talking, and now's your chance. Anything? I see some things going on in the chat. So If you don't want to ask a question here, or you're like, well, I need to talk longer than I want to on the webinar, just give me a call. I'm always here. Call me on my cell, chat.
Hey,
So-
Jen, this is Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello. I think you guys have done a great job. I like the website. I like the additions that you have on there, and I think that'll help everybody out. So I appreciate it, and I think that'll make it smoother for us and getting some of those that are on the fringe to take a look at ROI. But everything looks great. You guys have done a great job.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. And actually, you made me think of something else. If you have folks that are on the fray and maybe they just need, maybe they need a little more attention, maybe they need a meeting, whether it's in person or virtual, whatever, let us know. You know, we've got field reps in the field that can be available for meetings. I can be available for meetings. If you feel like that extra sort of touch is what they need, let us know. Okay.
Did you guys like this format, or do you like being able to be in your office and watch this as opposed to the board meeting? You have more people attend and stuff. Okay. I just want to double check and make sure. Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we get so crunched for time and there's so many things going on, other meetings, and, you know, people can't stay for the whole thing or, you know, whatever. Obviously we like to be in person more, you know, but I feel like getting the information to more people is probably better.
This format's great.
Awesome. Super. Well, and seeing members, you know, because you guys all have, you know, aside from just your membership people and yourselves, I know you have members that are out there, you know, working on stuff like this. So for them to be able to participate, I thought that was good. So.
Jen, what I might suggest is maybe kind of keeping it like this, and then maybe in our in-person meeting, we can just kind of do a quick update and see how recruiting has going. And like you'd ask the rest of the group of like, what are you finding is helpful? What are your challenges? And then that might help be a, you know, a good productive, not that this isn't productive, but just kind of a more meatier kind of conversation to help each other out in that. And then we don't hopefully run out of time, or maybe we can solve some of those challenges together.
I think that's a great idea. And I will be asking for time in February at the board meeting. So just to kind of give you know, just a little bit of an update. And then I would love to hear how things are going from you. It's only a month away. So, but yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Good. You got it.
Cool. All right. Well, unless anyone has anything else, I think we're good. We're going to sign off. Okay. Watch those inboxes.